What if I told you that in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, there exists a power so tantalizing, so intoxicating, that it threatens to shatter the very fabric of the game? That's right, I'm talking about flight. If you're expecting me to say something else, you read the title, right? Yes, we're talking about flight here, and yes, you heard that right. Flight. The ability to soar through the skies and give the middle finger to gravity. But hold on to your hats, my friends, for what I'm about to reveal may just change the way you see the game forever. Or maybe it will just make you scratch your head a bit, or maybe you'll just watch this video because you can't eat a meal without some form of entertainment, and this popped up on your feed. Regardless, welcome to another video from us over here at Natural One, where we'll be diving headfirst into the controversy surrounding this potent mechanic, and you're coming along with us, whether you like it or not. So grab your dice and prepare for takeoff, because this is one you're not going to want to miss. Before we get into why flight is broken, let's first talk about what flight really is in 5th edition. I promise I'll be fast here. Basically, these mechanics grant characters the ability to navigate 3-dimensional space, transcending the constraints of gravity. Characters can achieve flight through various means, including magical spells like fly, racial traits such as the Aircocker's natural wings, or enhanced items like brooms or carpets of flying. Flight allows characters to move vertically as well as horizontally, opening up a whole new dimension of exploration, combat, and role-playing opportunities. However, this newfound freedom of movement has not been without controversy. Some argue that flight mechanics introduce complexities that can be more difficult to manage effectively within the framework of the game. Flying characters gain advantages such as improved mobility, line of sight, and access to otherwise unreachable areas, which can make it challenging for dungeon masters to create encounters that are equally challenging for both flying and non-flying characters. This can lead to concerns about fairness and balance within the game. Now, when it comes to combat encounters, flight can be a dungeon master's worst nightmare and a player's wildest dream. Imagine this. Your party's in a life or death struggle against a horde of angry owlbears. The tension is palpable, the stakes are high, and then, out of nowhere, your resident winged wonder takes flight and throws the entire encounter into disarray. Well, there goes the encounter, right? With flight, the distinction between ground-based and aerial combat blurs, creating a logistical puzzle for dungeon masters striving for balance. Crafting encounters that challenge both flying and non-flying characters becomes akin to juggling flaming torches while riding a unicycle. Impressive, yes, but with a high chance of someone getting singed. Not enough to convince you that this might be a problem? No? Well, allow me to paint you a scene of absurdity, my friends. Have you ever heard of the legendary Tarrasque? You know, the challenge rating 30 behemoth of scales and fury with nearly 700 health and a 25 AC? The one that people routinely describe as the most powerful creature in Dungeons & Dragons and is able to easily take on a party of level 20 adventurers? Yeah, well, it just so happens to find itself rendered impotent against an aerial assault. I'm going to need someone to explain to me the logic of the fact that a mere level 1 character armed with nothing but wings and audacity can outmaneuver a titan of terror. It defies reason, logic, and the very essence of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm not kidding. A level 1 Aircocker simply using Sacred Flame over and over and over again can eventually kill the biggest, baddest monster in Dungeons & Dragons lore. Explain to me right now how that makes sense. It's not a power build, it's not some crazy class combo or busted magic item. It's literally just the power of flight. Not convinced yet? Why don't you leave a comment and telling me so? Also, if you were convinced, then you can also leave a comment. Everyone can leave a comment. Crazy that YouTube just lets you do that, huh? Freedom of speech and all. Anyway, while you're doing that, I'm going to move on. Now let's talk about overcoming obstacles and challenges created by Dungeon Masters, or rather the lack thereof in this case. With flight at their disposal, players can simply flap their way over traps, barriers, and environmental hazards with all the effort of a seagull gliding on a gentle breeze. It's like playing a game of chess against someone who can fly. Sure, you might make some strategic moves and feel pretty good about yourself, but ultimately, they're just going to swoop in and snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Kinda hard to beat someone if they don't have to play by your rules. And let's not forget the diminished significance of terrain and environmental factors. What's the point of setting up elaborate tripwire traps and environmental hazards when players can simply fly over them? I'm telling you, it is exhausting and downright disheartening. It's enough to make a Dungeon Master tear their hair out in frustration and wonder why they even bothered setting up the elaborate Rube Goldberg death trap in the first place. In one particular game of mine, I found myself playing an Aircocker Rogue. That's right, I actually got to play. It was pretty exciting. Anyway, as our party delved into the depths of a dungeon, every step forward brought us closer to certain doom. But as I took to the skies, or at the very least the raised ceiling, I watched with a mix of awe and horror as the challenges meticulously laid out by our Dungeon Master crumbled before my very eyes. We finished it in maybe an hour, Or at least my character did. Traps that were meant to test our mettle were rendered meaningless as I simply flew over them, and puzzles intended to stump us were solved with little more than a bird's eye view. I skipped them entirely. The look of disbelief on our dungeon master's face was priceless, a perfect blend of frustration and resignation. To that dungeon master, I am so very sorry for what I did. In fact, go say sorry to your dungeon masters right now. You know what you did. Or at least thank them for putting up with your shenanigans. So yeah, characters with flight are kinda broken. It's more than just a means of transportation or a cool little flavor thing. It's a game changer. A trump card that can turn the tide of battle in an instant. With the ability to take to the skies at will, these airborne adventurers gain unparalleled mobility, tactical advantage, and strategic flexibility that is unmatched by anything else at lower levels. But let's not overlook the flip side of the coin. The other members of the party left to contend with their grounded limitations. While the Aarakocra monk soars above the battlefield, the Dwarven barbarian may struggle to keep pace, weighed down by heavy armor and earthbound constraints. It's a disparity that can lead to feelings of frustration and inadequacy among players as they watch their winged comrades dance through the clouds while they remain tethered to the ground. This adds even more work for the dungeon masters, and I know that they already have too much on their plates. With flight at the disposal of certain characters, the delicate equilibrium of power can be easily upset, leaving dungeon masters scrambling to adapt and compensate for not just encounters, but with the feelings at the table too. As dungeon masters, we strive to create a collaborative and inclusive gaming experience for all players. Yet, when certain characters have access to abilities that far outperform those of their companions, it can breed resentment and discord within the group. Pretty solid argument, huh? Yeah, anyway, I guess you've been convinced. Flight is forever banned, and there's no point in having it. Catch you on the flip. What's that? You're looking at the video? There's still a decent chunk to go. But you've already liked and subscribed. You almost even smashed that notification bell. This is horrible. What do we do? Wait a minute. There better not be a surprise twist in the middle of the video where I, your friendly neighborhood narrator man, suddenly has a change of heart, and maybe thinks flight isn't that bad after all, and that maybe flight isn't as broken as you might think? I hate it when videos do that. Wow, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what came over me there. Let's just get back to it, shall we? Dramatics aside, I'm actually being pretty serious. While flight may present its challenges, perhaps there is absolutely more to the story than meets the eye. Now, let's tackle the challenge posed by combat encounters in the presence of flying characters. While it's true flight can throw a proverbial wrench in the works when it comes to encounter design, it's by no means an insurmountable obstacle. In fact, with a bit of creativity and ingenuity, Dungeon Masters can adapt and balance encounters to ensure that both flying and non-flying characters are equally challenged and engaged, creating a more immersive battle than existed before. Let's go back to the situation from before. The party's rogue takes flight, soaring above the battlefield, trivializing the battlefield. A similar situation as before, right? They can pick off enemies from the air without a care in the world. But little do they know, their fancy flight tricks have not gone unnoticed. From the shadows emerges a winged monstrosity, its eyes gleaming with predatory intent as it dives towards its airborne prey. Yes, my soon-to-be subscribers, introducing aerial adversaries and challenges is an easy way to keep combat encounters engaging and balanced for flying characters. Whether it's a flock of menacing griffins or a squadron of wyverns, these creatures add a new dimension to combat, forcing players to think strategically and adapt to new threats. They aren't going to play by the rules? Well, you don't have to either. I mean, you literally make the rules. Check the player's handbook. Hell, slap a couple thousand balloons on your Trask from before, and suddenly I'm not so sure that a level 1 character is ever going to be making it to level 2. But you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Mr. Narrator guy, what if I don't want to make every enemy fly? That's so unrealistic. I want another idea. Thank you for letting me know, and I guarantee you I've got another idea for you, and it's absolutely revolutionary. Ever heard of ranged weapons? Doesn't it make sense for your town guard to have a short bow, sling, or crossbow in addition to their sword? I sure think it does. I know, pretty unique, huh? I know, I'm a genius. If any of you tell me that you already knew about this, I will be emotionally crushed. But I should mention, you don't have to do this for every battle either. Sometimes you can just let your flying character enjoy flying. Just like a guy with 24 AC wants to feel untouchable at times, every character deserves their time in the spotlight. This is just a way to ensure that they aren't the only one in the spotlight. Okay, with that settled, let's talk about another way to level the playing field. Both ground and air-based adventurers face dangers from terrain and weather. For example, a foggy battlefield with strong winds can disorient everyone and hide enemies, making it tough for both ground and flying characters to navigate. You can create interesting setups, like telling your players that a thick fog rolls across the battlefield, reducing visibility and creating unpredictable wind gusts. Ground troops might struggle to see and navigate, while flyers are tossed about by the air currents. Enemies can hide in the fog, while the adventurers are easy targets. Or what about a canyon battlefield strewn with jagged rocks and crumbling cliffs, where every step carries the risk of triggering a deadly landslide? Both flying and non-flying have to be careful, or they'll find themselves buried beneath tons of rubble or plummeting to their doom below. By utilizing environmental hazards and terrain features that affect both flying and non-flying characters alike, Dungeon Masters can create dynamic and immersive combat encounters that challenge players to consider their surroundings and adapt their tactics accordingly. Speaking of hazards, I think it's time to talk about traps and dungeon crawls. The first step in challenging flying characters is to implement countermeasures and deterrents specifically designed to impede their progress. A watchtower manned by vigilant guards armed with nets and harpoons, ready to ensnare any airborne intruders foolish enough to approach. Or perhaps a series of arcane wards and barriers that create invisible barriers in the sky, forcing flying characters to navigate with caution lest they trigger a magical trap. That still not doing it for you? Well, how about a dungeon filled with narrow passageways and low ceilings, where flying characters must navigate with caution lest they collide with the walls or with the ceiling? Or perhaps a maze of corridors and chambers, where hidden traps and barriers lie in wait to ensnare the unwary. Sometimes all it takes to stop a flying menace from ruining your plans is a low ceiling. I doubt my rogue could have flown very well over the trap if everyone already had to crouch down to make it through the dungeon. Look, basically what I'm saying is, and now would be the time to look up from your phones, Dungeon Masters, because this is the summary of the whole section. Just plan for flying characters if you're going to have someone with a flying speed. I mean, you know you're going to be dealing with it, right? Not only does it provide a challenge for those players, but it helps to build out your world as a whole. If there are people who can fly in your world, then that world should be ready for them. Now, I do see the argument that lower level players are going to be too powerful with flight, and maybe the countermeasures that I put forward to you aren't suited for level 1 or level 2 or even level 3. I get it. That's scary, especially if it's your first time dealing with it and there's a lot of people out there saying that it's some insurmountable obstacle. Well, maybe you aren't ready to deal with flight yet. Here comes one of the best responses I've seen for a middle ground. Say you have an aircocker with natural flight at level 1. What if you clip their wings temporarily? This could be literal, or maybe you come up with a story reason that they can't fly for the time being. But maybe you give them a flight at level 3 or level 5 instead. You know, at the same level every caster unlocks the spell Fly or Asmar gains their own wings. That way you have a bit more time to prepare, access to a wider array of options to deal with it, and a bit more of an understanding of the experience of DMing for this player. Lastly, and if you don't listen to any of my other points, I would ask you to listen to this one because I'm being serious here. The most effective way to challenge flying characters is to emphasize the importance of teamwork over individual accomplishments. Remember how I was talking about that time that I just bypassed my Dungeon Master's whole dungeon? All by myself? That sucked. I did not have fun in that game, and I know for a fact that it was even worse for the other players who just had to sit and watch that game unfold as spectators. Sure, your average Owlin may have no trouble crossing a massive chasm that faces your party, but the giant metal gate that is waiting for them on the other side that can only be opened by the half-orc barbarian who is waiting patiently on the other side of the canyon. It should not be the abilities of individual characters that will determine their success, but rather their ability to work together as a team and leverage their collective resources. By encouraging players to collaborate, Dungeon Masters can create opportunities for creative problem solving and strategic thinking. Perhaps the Owlin can fly across with a rope, securing a makeshift bridge allowing for each member to make their way across to do the thing that the flying creature can't do on their own. Suddenly, that flight wasn't something that created a scenario where one player gets a spotlight, but everyone can be the star of the show. Now your collaborative storytelling game is exactly that. Collaborative. Have I harped on it enough? Are you getting tired of me hammering the point home? Because I feel like I say it in every video. Dungeons & Dragons is a collaborative storytelling experience. It is about embracing the challenges and responding with creativity, collaboration, and some other word that starts with C, because that would sound really good. Make sure to come up with something good here, and definitely don't just leave this in the script. That would be embarrassing. Okay, if you're sitting there thinking, I can't believe I watched this whole video. I still dislike the idea of flying players. I just don't want to deal with it. The benefits do not outweigh the negatives. I hate flying. I don't want it in my games. No compromise will convince me otherwise. Well, guess what? I have some great news for you. I'm literally just a guy spewing his opinions on the internet. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what I say. You should absolutely rule the game how you want to rule the game. I'm not sitting at your table, your players are. unless you're one of the people that I have a game with, but that's a pretty small population of you viewers. Regardless, talk with your friends, the people who you share laughter and stories with, the people who you celebrate the crits with and stare with dismay at those natural ones. Those are the people that are important here. Not me, not Mercer, and definitely not the editor of this video. No matter what he tells you, do not listen to him. Regardless, no matter who you are, if you're still here watching this video for some reason, I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me that you watch, and I can't wait to talk to you next time. Before you go, the video really is over now. It's not another fake out, so if you enjoyed it, please like the video and let me know what you want to hear from me down below next. If you think you'd be interested in coming back for more, smash that subscribe button down below. Thanks for watching from us here in Natural One, and until next time, catch you on the flip side.